examination year, which is obviously a hugely important year in their lives, and one that if they have the right support can be something that makes a real difference to them being successful. Just to start off this session though, it's just a reminder that the single biggest thing you can do in terms of achievement in exams and in terms of mental health for those exams is attending school every day and attending intervention sessions as well. If you're in lessons, you learn. If you're in intervention sessions, you learn. And not being in lessons can lead to gaps in knowledge. And that can also be a difficulty in terms of mental health sometimes, because if children have missed things in lessons, they can then become concerned about having to catch up. And it can be quite a snowball effect for some young people. And statistically, that makes a huge difference. And if you look at the graph that's on the screen right now, that is based on our predicted exam results, and that's predicting what our students will be getting compared to their attendance. And you will see in the far left column, 100% attendance, those children who turn up every day, they are going to be, on average, achieving a Progress 8 score of 0.3. Now, Progress 8 is basically, out of 10 exams that you sit, if you hit your target grade, you get the massive score of a 0. If you get above your target grade, you get a positive score. If you get below it, then you would get a negative score. So for children who are 100% their attendance, their Progress 8 score suggests that in 1 in 3 subjects, they will be getting a grade above their target. So maths, English, science, they'd be getting, if their targets were 4s, a 4 in English, a 4 in maths, and a 5 in science perhaps. So you're making huge levels of progress. For students, you see the next column along, 95 to 99.9%, those students achieve what they should achieve. So they're in lessons and they learn. Then we go along to the 90 to 95% bracket. Now, in other things, in tests, 90% is good. You know, 90%, you do a test, you do an exam, you're happy with 90%. Well, unfortunately, in attendance, it doesn't quite work like that, because 90% means that you've missed 1 in 10 days. It means you've missed a day every 2 weeks. And obviously, that's going to add up over your time in school. So for children who've got 90 to 95% attendance, they might miss that important lesson. That means they drop a few marks in one of their exams. And on average, their Progress 8 score is minus 0.1. So what we're saying there is they'd get 9 out of 10 subjects, they'd be hitting their target grades, but in that one subject, they might be dropping below their target grade as well. And then finally, you will see that the huge detrimental impact that having attendance below 90% has. You're missing more than 1 in 10 days in school, missing more than 1 day every 2 weeks, and that's going to have an impact in terms of what you learn in lessons. There's going to be gaps in your knowledge, and that can have a real impact in terms of what you do overall. So what I'd say is attendance is the biggest thing that you could do in terms of your GCSEs. You come to school, and if you go to the lessons, we've got good teachers at the school, you will, as a child, make progress. But obviously, as parents, there are things that you can do to support your children as well. Setting them up for revision is very important in terms of getting them prepared. And we know that revision, going alongside those lessons, give your child the best chance of getting the best grade in those exams. First of all, it's an important question. You ask your child how you can help them. Now, for children, just having that question in the first instance, that can make a real difference, because that means they know you care. Okay, that question, how can we help? It shows you care. It shows you take those exams seriously and that you want to support them. And they may have things that they're able to say to you, this would be really helpful. First of all, help them get organized. So make sure that they've got the things they need: files, dividers, wall charts, little cards they can write on, flashcards. Really useful if you've got some equipment that they can be using to actually help them to write things down and keep things organized, because organization, obviously with so many different GCSEs they're doing, is very important. It's also important they've got a place to revise. Have they got a quiet room or a quiet area where they can revise without being disturbed, and where they can have time to themselves to actually get that revision done. Because if they are going to be disturbed by a screen or by noise or by other people, that can be really detrimental to revision. So it is worth thinking about when it comes to organisation. Is there a spot in the house that's quiet, that's set up as a real learning space that my child can use and really focus for that revision time that they're going to be doing? Now, the school is putting in a huge amount of support. Intervention sessions run every day, and teachers are very often giving up other time to support children as well. So find out what support the school is offering, and we do send it out. We put it on Facebook, we put it out in letters. Children will have it in their planners and things like that. Please make sure they take it up. Okay, teachers give up their time because we care about children doing well, and these intervention sessions are specifically designed to support with exam technique and to go over things in extra time that we don't necessarily have in lessons. So by going to those intervention sessions, it really gives you that extra chance and that extra support to make sure that children do well. So we would really encourage that any support that is on offer, and there's loads of it, that your child is taking that up. We also, as a school, provide our knowledge organisers, and that knowledge organiser will have all the key factual information that your child needs for the subjects they do. So we do provide those things, but you may want to go out and get a revision aid, a revision guide for a subject as well. Obviously, we've provided one. It is your prerogative if you'd like to go out and get another one. However, what we would suggest is choose one per subject. Okay. Now, these revision guides tend to tell you which GCSE and exam board they are there to help with and to support, but it doesn't necessarily help if you've got lots of different revision guides that sort of take things maybe in different ways in terms of how they deal with exam technique or in terms of what kind of information they're sharing. So we would say choose one revision guide and stick to that, and we will provide a list to you for each subject. And as I say, as a school, we provide our knowledge organisers, which have a comprehensive amount of information for each of the subjects and should contain everything that your child needs to be successful in the subjects that they study. It's also really important when it comes to preparing for revision to actually plan a revision timetable. Now, we will supply the templates for you, but it's really important that you spend time on each subject and that you divide that time over the week, so children aren't trying to do too much at once, and also so that there is time for children to relax, look after themselves, have some family time and socialising time as well. So it's important that you plan a revision timetable that allows children to focus, that allows them to carry out, substantial amounts of revision to support them in their exams, but also means that they have some time for themselves as well. A revision timetable is also good if you get into it early, because then you can see over time how much you've put into each subject, and you can make sure you are focusing on subjects in the right amounts and not just looking at one subject at the expense of others. And those revision timetables, what they allow you to do is, instead of maybe pushing things back and saying, I'll do it tomorrow, it gives you that opportunity to say, no, I've said I've done that. This is the positive thing that I'll do afterwards once I've done it, and then you can get started. So how can you support your child when they are doing revision? Well, first of all, use praise and rewards. So please make sure you're telling them well done, and that you have got some things in place maybe to say well done and to recognise for them doing the right things and sticking to that revision timetable and those start and finish times. So really ramping up the positives, because it is difficult as a young person sometimes to motivate yourself. It's winter, it's a tiring day, you get back from school, it's difficult to motivate yourself sometimes to get into that revision, but it's so important having some positive things to look forward to and having your parents praise you for doing those things. That can make all the difference. So quietly topping up their workbox. Children will have pens, pencils, highlighters, rulers and things like that. These things can get lost, and it's not good for arguments or for children to get wound up about losing those things. So please keep an eye on their stationery and their resources, and just make sure that you are keeping it so that students have got enough things to be using, and that they're not having to worry about what they're going to write things down with or what they're going to use when it comes to the revision. So obviously, once they sat down for a revision, you want that to be focused time. And it's brilliant if you can provide favourite snacks and water. If you're dehydrated, it's very hard to learn. So water and having a drink whilst you're doing it is so important. And also snacks can also help you out as well. And obviously, if you've not eaten, that can be something that's difficult to keep your energy levels up. And obviously, you need to be firing on all cylinders to do revision. You want to be focused. So if you're not focused, things aren't going to be going in. What else can you do? Be firm but flexible. Okay, so you've obviously got your revision timetable, hopefully. And it's important that you are firm with children and saying, we need to stick to that. It's important you get in this revision in. However, it might be that there's an important social event or something that children really want to do on that night. And it's important to look at that in advance to obviously recognise if it is something that's important they wouldn't want to miss, and try to be flexible with it. So maybe look at that revision timetable and say, right, okay, so we'll move this around from that day, but we're going to do a bit more here. And again, being firm with it and saying, no, we need to be doing this revision. It's really important, and revision really does make a difference. Those hours of learning and recall really makes a difference to what goes into a child's memory and what they're able to put onto the paper when it comes to that GCSE exam. So important you're doing it. But if you're a little bit flexible, you can maybe go out and do this social event. We'll just do a little bit more on that night. And again, that keeps children motivated, being able to do that. Also, please be sensitive to the pressure your child's feeling. Okay, it is a stressful time. It is a stressful year. Exams are stressful at any time and at any stage of life. And for children in year 11 now, it's the first proper set of exams they're going to do. And obviously, we've had COVID, which has impacted on education over time as well. Now, there's plenty of support in school, but obviously, it's really important at home that you're trying to support children and saying stress is a natural thing. And being worried about things is a natural human response, and it's important, physiologically, that you do have that stress. It's a sort of fight or flight mechanism that helps you to stay focused and to deal with things in the right way. But please, if you recognise children are feeling stressed, try to do things to allow them time for themselves, time to calm down. Just talking to people makes all the difference, and reminding them it's natural to feel stressed. The exams, you want them to do well, but it's just all about them trying their best, and it's about making sure they feel supported and they've got people to speak to, so they're not bottling it up. Check in with them when they are revising. So if your child is off in their room or their quiet space and they're getting through that revision, keep going in and checking in with them, making sure they're okay. And then also, don't count down the weeks left. That is proven to be a demotivating factor. You're constantly saying, oh, you need to revise. We've only got 10 weeks left. We've only got 9 weeks left. It's actually something that can have the opposite effect. So instead, it's really important to stay positive and instead look at that revision timetable and just keep going at it and saying, yeah, this is how many hours we're going to do. We're in a really good place. This is what we've done so far. Let's just keep going. And that has a much bigger impact than counting down the days and instead getting a little bit stressed and worried about things as they come up. So what I'm now going to talk to you about is some specific revision techniques. So we've got our quiet space. We've planned out when we're going to be doing revision. We're in a positive mood. We've thought about mental health in terms of when we're planning these things, and we've made sure we're nice and hydrated, drinking water, and we've had those snacks as well. But there are things to do that can make a real difference in terms of how you do revision. And revision can be hours where you don't get a huge amount from it, but if it's planned and if it's focused and you're doing those right things, revision can really make a difference to your GCSEs and exams, because it can really bolster the learning you're getting in lessons. Now, the first thing is to start early. Okay, revision does not work, or it certainly doesn't work as well if you leave things to the last minute. Scientifically, if you start early and regularly recall things and regularly come back to them, then you will bring them into your long-term memory. Miss Corsi is going to talk about that after this session. But the key thing is start early, start now. And if you start that revision early and keep it going over time, it will have the most impact. Regularly revisit. revision topics. So if you do start this week and you do your first topic in maths, you need to go back to that, and you need to go back to it more than once, because just going through a topic right now doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to pull that out of your mind and get it onto the GCSE paper when it comes to June. So make sure you are regularly revisiting all of your revision topics, and the more you do that, the more it will go into your long-term memory. That's why the key is to start early, because then you can revisit things more. It's also about trying to develop an understanding of a topic rather than just adding knowledge. Okay, facts are important. Remembering key details, very, very important. You do need to have that recall. But ultimately, in every exam, there's an element of understanding, of explanation, of being able to talk about concepts and develop them. So when you do look at revision, it's not just about saying, well, I can remember these 50 facts, therefore I will do well in the exam. It doesn't quite work like that. You must have an understanding of how those things link together and how you need to use them on the exam paper itself. So it's all about developing understanding, not just knowledge. Obviously, that knowledge of those key facts is very, very important. So what kind of things can you do that are proven to be successful in terms of revision techniques? And just to add to what I've said before, if you mix these up, if you have a bit of variety to your revision techniques and you try to keep them positive and keep them engaging for yourself, revision isn't going to be seen as a chore, because there'll be things that you enjoy and there'll be a difference to what you're doing, and it will help to keep you motivated and engaged with what you're doing. So try not to just do the same thing. Also, sitting there and reading through a few pages of a revision guide, that's not going to cut it in terms of your long-term memory. You need to do something with that information. Just reading through things, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go into your head. And also, if that's what you're trying to do for hour after hour, that is going to be something that you're going to find challenging in the long term. So what are the specific things we can do to make sure revision is effective? Well, the first one is mind maps. Now, mind maps are where you basically information from your head backed up with other information from revision guide, knowledge organisers, goes onto a piece of paper. Now, a mind map is kind of like a spider diagram, like a spider's web with ideas around it. But the idea is that you would divide off your key information into topics and then subtopics, but you try to use some pictures as well. And the idea of that is dual coding, and that is your mind remembers things. If you can see the picture with the word at the same time, you've got more chance of actually remembering that. So with a mind map, it can be quite creative. It can be something that you do, you enjoy if you're doing those pictures as well as key facts, but you'd get a major topic and then you'd split it down into the subtopics and then the information and facts around that. Put some pictures in to help you remember it. What you can then do is check your knowledge organizer, see if there's anything you've missed about that particular topic, and add that onto your mind map. And you're going to be developing your memory through that. The next one is a concept map. So a concept map is basically trying to map things together. So you might have some key terms, some key features within a topic in any subject. And the idea is to get those things down, but then join them together and make those links and explain what those links are. And again, it's that developing the understanding of the topic as well as knowledge. So you can see the example there is from geography, and it's talking about how different aspects of geography will all map together and how they all link in and that's topics around recycling and around the planet. And you can see how other things link together and impact in. It's all about that understanding and connection. So again, once you've got that concept map, you've linked them together, you can go back to your revision guide, your knowledge organizer, look and see if there's anything you've missed and add in those concepts as well. Now, so important is exam practice. So when it comes to your GCSEs and getting things down onto paper, there is a structure that most exams will need you to follow to be able to be successful. And in lessons in school, we make sure we follow those structures and teach children those structures. But it's so important to actually get those exam papers, and they're provided at school, but also we let you know in our curriculum plans on the school website which exam boards we're actually studying, and you can download mock exams and previous exams from those exam boards as well. But it's about going through the exam and checking, do you understand the style of the question? What kind of questions are you good at? What kind of questions do you need to work on? And taking some extra time to focus on those questions that you need to work on, but also looking at the positives and saying, yeah, I'm able to do that. Understand what kind of things you can do in terms of going through the exam and checking, do we know how to answer that question? And again, practicing those types of questions. Something else that's really important in GCSEs as well is timings. And a lot of exams have got quite high time pressures on them. So we recommend using stopwatches or a clock and asking children to do their exam practice in timed conditions, and they can see how much they need to write in the amount of time and how much they can write in that amount of time. And it gives them an understanding of how they need to work when it comes to the exam. But it's really, really important. Practice makes perfect. And if you hand those practice questions into teachers, they'll more than happily support in terms of marking those and giving feedback. Parent testing. Now, this is a real good one for support. And again, it's that regular recall, but asking for a part of the knowledge organizer or a revision guide and actually going through and asking some questions. Now, that shows you're in it together. It shows you want to help, and children really value when they feel supported. But it's something that allows you to check on that knowledge and allows children to see exactly how much they know. And obviously, if they don't get something right, you can help them with that answer, and the next time they will remember it. Again, that's a really engaging and a positive task in terms of working at home and working together. Improving the answer. Now, this is something that really, really works in terms of understanding what is needed in an exam. So actually looking at answers, and again, these are available on websites and we provide them at school as well, but actually looking at answers, maybe it's answers that your children have written in lessons themselves, looking at a GCSE answer and then going through and thinking, have we met the exam criteria? Have we done what is expected to be done in terms of that exam? And then putting some work together and trying to improve it. So identifying what could be better and then improving the answer the next time. And again, it's that thought process of understanding what does the exam question need me to do and developing your skills at being able to do that. Okay, so card cover. Flashcards are talked about. They're really, really effective and ways that can help you remember things. So one thing you can do is putting answers on the back of the flashcard. So having a question, putting the answers on the back, and then putting that down and then trying to remember as many as you can and then checking your answers and seeing that you've got those. Or you can use a piece of paper and you can move it down to reveal answers as you go through and guess the contents. Those flashcards are useful because you're writing things down, that key information, and then you can use it to quiz yourself. Parents can use it to quiz children, or it could be something that you're sort of testing yourself on as you go along. So for example, there's a question there, name 3 non-renewable sources of fuel. You'd have to name them and then you check on the back and the answer would be oil, coal and gas. So you'd be checking your knowledge on that. 100 words. So this is about condensing a topic into 100 words. So again, there's that challenge of really distilling things down. It's about checking your understanding and knowing what the key parts of that topic are, but taking a large topic from a knowledge organizer, taking it from a revision guide and actually getting that down into just 100 words that really are the key pieces of information that you need. And again, you would then able to use that as a bit of a revision tool moving forwards. Post-it notes. Post-it notes are brilliant. I'm sure we all use these in various aspects of life or work, and they can be things that really, really help with understanding. You can put them anywhere Obviously, you can put them onto your wall, your door, large pieces of paper, and then you can move them around according to a variety of ideas. Having post-it notes and putting things up on things that you will visit throughout the house. Again, you revisit bits of information, and that will generally go in over time as you see it regularly throughout a day. Post-it notes are good because you can put key facts and key information, and you can then group them together, move them around. You can organize them into, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, and it really gives you a hand in terms of understanding what you know about a topic and what you don't know. And it's obviously a motivating thing if you're moving the post-it notes over time to the know section compared to the don't know section. And obviously, if there's trends or themes like you might have in English or other things, you can color code them and you can move them around, and it really helps you organize your information in a bit of a flexible way. So once you've written things down, you can move it around and you don't have to write things down again. Pictures. Again, this dual coding idea, pictures really help to help for things to go into your memory over time. So get a picture that relates to one of the topics, and then you've got key terms and named examples that go around it. So you'd have that picture in the middle, or you draw a picture of a key aspect of the topic, and then you put those key terms and named examples around it, and linking those things together will help it to go into your long-term memory over time. Chunking. Now, chunking is something that really helps in terms of breaking things down, helping them to go into your head. Okay, so sometimes it can be quite daunting if you've got large pieces of text, or on your knowledge organizers, you're going to have pages where there's going to be lots and lots of information. Now, breaking things down into different pieces of information into smaller chunks can really help you. It's kind of like steps in a ladder. So you take that huge block of information and then you identify little chunks, little key features of it, and you break that down. So you can say step 1, step 2, step 3, or example 1, example 2, example 3, and using small paragraphs, using bullet points to break up information. Again, you can use pictures in there as well, but taking a large piece of information and breaking that up into key steps or key features, again, helps with understanding and helps it to go into your head. Reading one giant piece of information and expecting to be able to take that in one go, very, very difficult. Breaking things down and remembering steps, so much easier in terms of remembering an overall picture. Key themes. So when it comes to your exam subjects and your exam topics, they're all going to have key themes within them. And it's important that you know what those themes are and that you can break those down. So you'd have the main topic in the middle, and then you try to identify the key themes that go around it. And then obviously you can break that down into smaller information as well. So for example, the battle for the biosphere, that's a major topic in science. And then you break it down into the different key themes, such as biomes, mass extinction, things that you've learned about, so you'd know what those key features are. Very similar to chunking, that you're taking a large piece of information and you're breaking that up to help you remember it. Revision boxes. Now, these are things that can really help you summarize information. So again, it's identifying themes from a topic and then breaking up your page, pick out 4 areas of a topic, got titles in boxes, and then summarize those key points, not in full sentences. Again, it's about remembering key information and actually getting those things down. Bullet points, maybe some pictures to support as well. That can really help. Keyword sheets to write definitions and key terms. A couple of really good examples there, but they're where you can go through a topic and you can pick out those keywords, you can pick out key bits of information that you need to know, and then get those definitions in there. You can highlight them when you're confident that you know them, and you can add little bits of information as you go along with those. You can see a really good example from a student as well there as well. So as I say, it's really, really important to break up revision with lots of different activities, but activities that are proven to be successful. So the ones we've talked through, they're all proven to work. There's scientific backing to them in terms of it works to help with your memory. These are things that if you do lots of different types of revision will help you to stay engaged, help you to stay motivated, and they're far better than just trying to read through a book without actually turning that information into anything, which can not be very effective. So we come to the exam period, and obviously in not very many months, in May and June, your children will come to the exam period. And before that, they're going to have mock exam periods as well. Now, these are stressful times. They are. Exams can be stressful. As I say, stress is normal, and it's a very common thing for people to face that stress when they are doing exams. However, staying positive, you can get through it, and working with your child is so important, and keeping them positive throughout that period. So please encourage your child to keep positive throughout. They will soon be on the other side of that exam mountain. Even now, it's only a few months away, and those GCSE exams will be done, and hopefully the hard work will be there and finished, and they will have those fantastic results to look forward to, and it'll be all worth it. Please don't add to their stress levels, and I know that's difficult, but please try not to, okay? Pick your battles, okay? Sometimes it might not be the time to discuss the untidy bedroom if your child is about to start an hour or two of revision. If they've left the washing up again, but obviously they've got a lot of revision to do and they're hard at work, maybe that's not the time to have that battle. So think about not adding to children's stress levels whilst trying to support them throughout. Help them be prepared. They will get an exam timetable for mock exams and for the real thing. Please check that that's down somewhere so they know when those exams are coming up, and they know when they've got each subject. Speak to them, what exams have you got tomorrow? What are they going to be based on? What time are they? What equipment do you need? Take those stressors out of the way earlier on, so it's not something that they're worried about on the day. Because obviously on the day of an exam, you want to be able to get up, pick up your bag, stay focused, and without worrying about anything else, get to that exam, get it done. If you're worried about having to pick up equipment and what you've got that day and other things like that, that can really add to stress levels, it won't be helpful at all. Also, it's important to keep to routines. So early wake up's important. There's going to be lots of exams that are early on. Getting breakfast is really important, because if you've not had breakfast, you're not going to be on top of your game, and you're not going to be able to focus. Trying to have a shower or a bath in the morning so that you are fresh and prepared and you're ready. And again, it's having that preparation in advance so you're not worrying about it on the day. So keep to those routines so children aren't staying up too late and they're able to get up ready to go for their exams. Remind them that, you know, they are exams, and whilst we all want them to do well, you value them, you love them anyway, whatever happens, and you just wish them good luck and you want them to do their best. And again, sometimes children can come away from exams and they might feel they've not given it their best shot. They might feel they've not done their best in that exam. But have that attitude. Tomorrow's another day. If things haven't gone to plan, there's always another day, and we can carry on and do better the next time. So that's the end of part one. I hope you found it informative. I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Corsi now. And if you have any questions on revision techniques, drop them in the chat box, and we will answer all of them in an email, which will go to the whole of the Year 11 parent group for Year 11. And obviously, if you have any questions regarding your own child, please do feel to get in contact with Mr. Crow, the head of Year 11. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to the second half of our webinar. I'm very, very happy to be spending some time with you this evening and talking you through some of the aspects of how your child learns. And there's quite a lot of work that I've been doing since I've arrived at the school as assistant head teacher for teaching and learning about the idea of using research to make sure that we are doing the very best for our children here at Manor Academy, and making sure that they have the very best research evidence, teaching and learning strategies placed before them, not only in school but also at home. So it's important perhaps to share with you how your child learns and how the brain works. And we can therefore tailor our revision tasks and give much more focused support for your child because of the information that we know and that we can use in our teaching. So I'm just going to share with you this very simple model of how the memory or how the brain works, and then particularly focusing on how our memories work. And we all know that, of course, the learning environment in which our students work at school has quite an impact on how much they focus and how much they actually take on board. And this is exactly the same at home. So when your child is working at home, as Mr. Hudson said, it's really important to have a space which is quiet, away from distractions, mobile phones switched off, PlayStation switched off, just having a really, really focused sort of opportunity to get on with some work, some revision. And the working memory only has the capacity. So the working memory is just where we do our thinking and where we sort of are conscious in our day-to-day lives. That the working memory only has the capacity for about 4 or 5 pieces of information at any one time. So how do we go about making sure that we can remember items of information, the things that we learn at school and the things that we revise at home for later? And the way we do this is we try and commit it to our long-term memory. So working memory only has, like I say, a limitless the long-term memory has a limitless capacity. It's like a massive storage warehouse, and therefore we can commit lots and lots of information, and that frees up the working memory. So the working memory then is not overloaded. Your child doesn't get too stressed. And it's important because then this is where the actual learning happens. So learning happens when there's an interchange, if you like, between working memory and long-term memory. And the more that we pull information out of our long-term memory, the stronger the memory becomes. So that interchange is really important. And this is when real, or what we might call deep learning, happens. So this is all important because it's going to help us to make sure that our students have less items in their working memory because they are able to offload the work into their long-term memory over time, and that's really important as well. As Mr. Hudson said, it is only over time that we can learn. And this brings me to the graph here that I'd like to share with you. And hopefully you can see that at the bottom, you've got how many times our children might be exposed to an item of new information. So it may be, I don't know, a maths equation. And you can see on the left-hand side, on the axis of the graph there, you've got at the time of being taught about perhaps this maths equation, your child is going to know 100% of that information. So that's really, really high. But the problem with new information is that you forget it quite easily, and we all forget, and that's absolutely fine. That's part of how the brain works. But obviously we need to do something to stop the forgetting, and that is by revisiting the information. So if we can revisit the information, it may be that maths equation. If you notice the second time that we are taught it, or that we recall it out of our long-term memory, you have a much less chance of forgetting it. And gradually the graph works through so that actually at the 4th or 5th time, you're nearly with 93% chance of actually remembering and being able to work with the information. So that's the good news. The good news is that the brain is going to help us because it's got this massive warehouse, this real storage powerhouse, and we can recall information out of our long-term memory over time, but only if we regularly revisit it. And we all know that feeling, don't we, of when we've forgotten something and we haven't recalled it for ages and we just really can't remember it. And it's not that it's not in our long-term memory, it's not that it's not in our brains, it is, but we just need to have the time to revisit and do that regularly over a period of time. So it's really important that number one, forgetting happens because otherwise we won't be able to test ourselves, but it's exceptionally important for our students and for your child to revisit work, to go back to the knowledge organizer, to go back to that maths equation, and to be able to also use it perhaps across other subjects. So it may be actually that the maths equation will be revisited in science, or the maths equation will be revisited in geography, because there's quite a lot of maths and geography in the sort of newer GCSEs. So over time, it's really important that your child has the opportunity to revisit information, because that's when learning happens, and that's really important. And it is more likely that we will remember it in the long term. So as a little bit of a recap for this little section so far, we can definitely say that we know that our working memory is limited. It can only hold 4 or 5 items at any one time. And that's important when your child is revising at home, because if they're learning something from the knowledge organisers, which is quite new to them, perhaps they haven't really had very much exposure to that particular piece of information before, it can only really be held in our thinking for, you know, quite a short amount of time before the brain gets overloaded. So if we want to store the information for later, we have to transfer it into our long-term memory, that warehouse that I spoke about. And that's the way that we can make sure that our learning lasts for longer. And after a period of forgetting, we need to retrieve it or recall it regularly, just like that forgetting curve showed, that the more regularly we recall information, the less likely we are to forget it again, and we are going to be able to remember it, particularly, I would say, under periods of stress. And unfortunately, obviously, as we've said, the exams are quite stressful, and the assessments that we perhaps do for BTEC could also be quite stressful. So we need to really, really make sure that, the information that we want our students to be able to recall and to be able to know and show that they understand is really in their long-term memory, and that can be recalled at will whenever they need it. And the good news, like I say, is that more often that your child retrieves new information, the stronger the memory becomes. And that's really good. So the brain sort of works a little bit like, I suppose, like a muscle. So the more opportunity you give to your students, or your child rather, to retrieve information at home using the knowledge organisers, the better. So we have already talked about having a quiet space at home, away from any distractions. That's really important, because the environment has an impact on how we learn, and for the capacity for our brains to be able to really focus. Our thinking is affected if it's an environment which is causing distraction. Taking a break is really important when you're doing revision. Going for a walk, going to do a bit of baking, whatever your child likes to do to de-stress or relax. It also gives the brain a period of forgetting that we've already spoken about. So that period of forgetting is important to make sure that it is committed to long-term memory. So having a walk, going out and about for a short period of time is really important, and good for the brain and good for your child. Getting a good night's sleep during revision and exams is really important. I'm sure that you are aware of that, but the reason is that actually retrieving information out of our long-term memory actually uses quite a lot of energy. So when your child is revising in a really focused way over periods of time using their revision exam timetable, they will become really, really tired, because they are doing revision which is purposeful and focused, and the brain does get a little bit tired, and your child will find it quite exhausting if they're doing revision over a period of time. So a really good night's sleep actually boosts the brain. It helps your child to sort of have a bit of a reboot and a refocus. And of course, during the exam period, that's exceptionally important, so that your child, as Mr. Hudson has said, gets to the exam on time, has had some breakfast before they arrive, and are feeling really, really positive and ready to go. So that's really important. Like I've said, studying hard is tiring and stressful. So we want to make sure as much as possible here at the Manor Academy that we are having an environment in which it's positive and nice and calm. And if that can also happen at home, that would be really, really useful for your child. Just want to talk a little bit about our revision techniques that we have here at the Manor Academy. So Mr. Hudson and I have both mentioned knowledge organisers, excuse me, and knowledge organisers are like a booklet, and we have given knowledge organisers for every single subject that your child is currently studying, for all of their subjects, whatever that is, whether that's a BTEC, whether that's GCSE, they have a knowledge organiser which they have been issued, and they should have it with them in school and also taking it home as well. And these knowledge organisers are really based on what we call an independent study cycle. And you can see here that the diagnose time is really when your child thinks about what they still need to revise, what they don't understand, or perhaps also what they can't remember. So it's the idea of thinking, okay, what do I still need to learn? Where am I up to? You know, according to my revision timetable, what do I understand and what do I still not understand? And if there are areas, for example, it may be in science or French or maths that you're still not sure of, then you've got to do something about it. So your child could go to the knowledge organiser and could find the information in the knowledge sheets and do something about it, do what we call some therapy. So as Mr. Hudson was talking about, some flashcards or a mind map or a concept map, and getting some revision techniques under their belt. And then it's the idea about seeing if they after a period of forgetting still remember it. So it may be that actually they leave it for a while, they go to school, they go to a club, they have some time out, and then they take a bit of time to test their learning. So the Diagnose therapy test approach to revision is very much supported by the research that we have and use within our academy about how our brains work. So everything has been set up to support your child in this process. And it also encourages your child to be proactive about their learning and to be increasingly independent in how they work, because obviously if they can diagnose what they don't know themselves, and then they can do some therapy, they can do some flashcard techniques, or they can go and do some mind maps, whatever it is that they like to do to revise, and then they can test their knowledge, or you can perhaps help them to test their knowledge. That is increasingly independent, which is exactly what we need them to be doing. Obviously, if they still struggle, they still got perhaps an item of revision that they still don't really get the idea of, then teachers at school, of course, will be absolutely more than happy to help your child. So please don't feel that, you know, we're saying, you know, it's all independent and you can't come and approach us if you're having a difficulty with an area of learning. Of course, we are here, you know, and we will be very much welcome those conversations. But it's about making sure that we are understanding how our brain works to support this Diagnose therapy test approach to revision and study. And your child has been spoken to about this and actually has received some coaching on this within an assembly last half term. So your child already has a good understanding of this DTT, this diagnose therapy test approach. And please do, feel free to talk to them about it, because the more you talk about the revision and the learning, the more interesting it will be for your child, and they can perhaps teach you a little bit of something. It might be nice as a conversation over the dinner table. So a few take-home points just to finish off. I know we've got a few minutes. So as we've said, creating a quiet space where your child can study at home to avoid distractions is very important. It's having the space and the place to have, the stationery, as Mr. Hudson said, to make sure that you've got the timetable set out for revision, that you can really have a good area in which to work. And that's the same just as at school. We're providing obviously lessons which are calm and purposeful, a really, really lovely environment for learning, and that has to carry on really as much as possible at home. And if home isn't a great place sometimes because it's busy and you've got other things and other children, then a local library is often open, so it could be that could be a space in which your child can work. Also, like we've said already, please do encourage your child to take regular breaks. It wouldn't be healthy if your child just shut themselves into their wherever they're working, could be their bedroom or wherever they're working for hours and hours and on end. Having a bit of a relaxed time out is good for the brain because it allows that period of forgetting. It allows you to go away, do something else, perhaps do a little bit of work on a different subject, and then come back perhaps and recall the information and get some information out of our long-term memory, as we've discussed already. And then, like I've just mentioned, getting information back out of long-term memory is going to strengthen the memory, is going to make it more powerful. And the use of images and pictures, as Mr. Hudson said, the idea of dual coding is really important, so that they don't only just remember the information, but they sort of link it, if you like, to a picture. And some children actually also remember when they have learnt it, that they think, oh yeah, I remember when I was learning that was in I don't know, in a particular classroom with a particular teacher, or I remember that because that was on a post-it note on the fridge door, and I remember making myself a cup of tea and waiting for the kettle to boil, and that post-it note reminded me. So sometimes techniques for getting information out of long-term memory is about having different techniques and awareness of different techniques. And then a good night's sleep, we've already spoken about it. During revision or exam times, if your child is revising in a focused way, it will make them very tired, and sometimes that could potentially be difficult for you to cope with at home, but hopefully by stepping back a little bit and encouraging them to get to bed at a reasonable time every night and get into a good habit of that during revision and exam periods is really, really important. And lastly, as we started off at the beginning of our webinar, great attendance is the key, because actually if we have our children in front of us in the classrooms, we can have impact. We can help your child to learn to their maximum potential. And I often think it's a good idea to talk to our children and say, and if you could do the same at home, just imagine you opening those results in the summer when you come to school and you've got those exam results in your hand. Just imagine what that is going to feel like. That's going to feel amazing. And obviously we want to get from here where we are now in November all the way through. And I think having that sort of future idea of how brilliant it's going to be and how it's going to feel is going to help your child to get through the next few months and to help them with their revision. So I think that's everything from Mr. Hudson and I. And please do, if you would like to write any questions in the chat, Mr. Gladwin is still here to answer any questions. But of course, if you would like to approach us in school, then we are all here, and that would be obviously lovely to hear from you. And please make sure as well, and just give your child the confidence to come and see their teachers as well if they're worried about anything, or their head of year, Mr. Crow. And we're all here rooting for your child. Okay, so that's it from us. Thank you very much for attending and for listening so brilliantly. Thank you.